Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Grand Page. I am your most humble and obedient servant, Page Ghost. The conversation I want to have today is one that I've been wanting to have for a while now. I got this set of movies. Ooh, wow. I might have had this set of movies for over a year now, but I've just been so busy with school and raising a daughter, having a family and stuff. You really just don't get time to just sink into this stuff a lot. But I am currently on spring break, and while I do have a few things to do, I do feel like I have time to finally return to a movie series that I've been wanting to watch and subsequently have a conversation about. And that is the Michael Bay Transformers movies. Today specifically, I'm talking about the first one from 2007. This is probably going to be a long video. I got a lot to talk about here. I'm really excited about this one. My bottom line, just first sense of recommendations right up front, go watch this movie. Go watch the 2007 Michael Bay Transformers film, the very first one. I 100% believe this first film will stand the test of time. I believe that people who get into Transformers will see this first film. So, like, for example, you play with toys or you watch, like, the 80s movie, stuff like that. The very next thing for you to experience would be this first 2007 film. It is absolutely fantastic on so many different levels. Very, very few critiques that either I feel like A, don't stand up to scrutiny, or B, any sort of real criticisms. There is some kind of balance to be had with them. And so, yeah. Like I said, real excited about this. If you haven't seen it, you don't want to get spoiled, just go ahead and go watch it. You can skip this video for now and go watch it, because I highly recommend just watching the film itself and enjoying it on its own merits. But to be fair, like, this isn't like a movie with a lot of twists and turns or surprises or anything to be spoiled per se. So I personally believe that you could watch this video and still enjoy the movie without seeing it. With all that being said, to get into sort of the conversation proper, I grew up actually on these Michael Bay films, particularly the first three. I was like a early teenager sort of age range when I was watching these. And the first three films sit very positively in my mind, and rewatching the 2007 film just affirms that it's not just nostalgia, and that it is just a good film, not just in general, but just a really, really good Transformers movie. And so it's not just nostalgia. Like I said, we're going to talk about some criticisms that I've heard about it, and how they really just don't work. They really just don't make sense whenever you apply a bit of critical thinking to them. But I grew up on these films, and to be fully transparent here, I'm not really a Transformers guy, says the guy who's wearing a Transformers shirt. I am, however, an Optimus Prime guy. I've always been attracted to the character and the characterization of Optimus Prime, and how he is the ultimate leader, right? So you have, like, a lot of my videos really revolve around superheroes doing the right thing, saving the day, all of this stuff. And one of the criticisms that maybe we'll talk about, and I'll touch on a little bit here, is I feel like too often people put Optimus Prime in the hero category, or the hero archetype, and while he has heroic qualities, I don't entirely agree with putting him in the category of hero. He goes in the category of leader. He is the, like, in fiction, in storytelling, I don't think I've ever met a character who is a better representation of a leader, right? You have characters like Superman and Batman, even Captain America, who have leadership qualities, but at the end of the day, they're heroes, right? But Optimus Prime, especially in a lot of the media that he's portrayed as, he's constantly having this weight of leadership on him, which is different. It's slightly different. There's not a lot of differences between how a hero responds to things and how a leader responds to things, but the weight is very different. And there's even like some of the old some of the old 80s cartoons touch on this. I remember an episode from, I think, season 3, before they brought back Optimus Prime, where Rodimus Prime, he's dealing with like the weight of leadership. I think it was called, like, the episode was called something like The Greatest Weight to Bear or something like that. It's ultimately like the weight of leadership, and I think something that he was specifically dealing with in that episode is like being like the something very specific to leadership and not necessarily to being a hero is recognizing that you make choices that affect other people under your charge, right? And that you have to bear that weight. And there's actually at least one, if not a good few moments of that in this first movie that really highlight that weight that Optimus Prime has to deal with. So all of that to say, I've never necessarily been a Transformers guy. The lore is very interesting, right? The Cybertron piece, where they come from, why they're on Earth, all that stuff. It's certainly interesting in and of itself, but that's not really what gravitated me towards the franchise. What gravitated me towards the franchise is Optimus Prime himself and that archetype of being a hero. And what I especially appreciate about nowadays. So when I first watched the films, particularly the first 3 films, I know I really, really enjoyed them, and generally they were very well received. I think there was a dip with Revenge of the Fallen. We'll talk about that one whenever I rewatch it. And then most people definitely agree that Dark of the Moon is better than Revenge of the Fallen. I don't know if people out there say that it's better than the first film. I highly doubt it, but again, I haven't seen Dark of the Moon in a minute. I might change my mind on that whenever I rewatch it. When the films first came out, generally speaking, of course, they did well box office wise. That's not necessarily a litmus test for whether or not it's a good film, but they did well in the box office. I look back on them very fondly. 2007 absolutely holds up, this first film. But there was a time period where, particularly, there was a lot of criticism towards Optimus Prime and his character in these movies. And I never personally understood that. I hadn't reflected on my perspective to get to like the details, the foundations of why I didn't agree with the criticisms that people had about Optimus Prime. A really like sort of go-to sort of response that people said was that they called him a psycho. That never made any sense to me, even though I couldn't articulate it. I can more accurately articulate it now. And to be fair, it's not just I can articulate it better now, but also I've seen in recent years, particularly the apologetics around Optimus Prime's character in these movies, particularly these first 3, and people are taking these criticisms to task, which I am very, very happy to see, because Optimus Prime in these first 3 movies especially is completely misunderstood, misrepresented. People don't accurately talk about him in the struggles that he's dealing with. They don't accurately talk about like laws and issues, the political strife that's going on with all of this. And so I really appreciate that in recent years that Optimus Prime in these Bay movies has been put in his proper place, and not demonized, and not overly criticized, but actually properly understood. So there's my background, my sort of uh, background with the movies, my background with the franchise, more specifically, my connections with Optimus Prime. And now let's get into the movie proper. Something on a bit of a technical side with the movie, before we get into like the story stuff, because I do think this is worth talking about very briefly, at least. Another reason this movie is going to stand the test of time, these special effects. This is something else that's like in huge talks, like on the internet nowadays, especially, and everything. Special effects. These special effects in these movies, and other people have been talking about this. I'm not saying anything new here, but these special effects sometimes look better than movies from today. And I 100% believe that people on this movie weren't paid enough for the special effects that they did. Not like saying some injustice occurred, but it's more so like how much work they did on this movie for the time period that it came out in. Uh, these transformations are top notch, absolutely beautiful. I enjoyed watching these, again, as a teenager, as a kid, whatever. But like as an adult who's like seen other superhero movies, other big spectacle events occur on the big screen, and then rewatching these, I'm like, holy cow, we're like, these movies are just like, we were spoiled with how good these animations and transformations are in these movies, especially in 2007. And they did such a good job, especially with characters like Optimus Prime. Like the first time you see Optimus Prime transform, and just the movement of the camera, just focusing on every detail, and the moving parts. And there's even like a few bits here and there that actually remind me of like the transforming toys. Like with that Optimus Prime zoom in whenever he's first transforming, you also see some of the other Autobots transform, and I think it was like with Ratchet or one of the others, or it might have been with several of them. But you actually see like his torso and his waist twist, right? Like he does a full 180 twist. You do that all the time with Transformers toys, and it was so cool to see that like play out in a movie. So a little bit of a nerd gushing there, and just talking about the CGI. And I don't know how they did it. It was 2007. That was, holy cow. That was almost 20 years ago now. Next year will be 20 years since that first Transformers movie came out, and it absolutely stands the test of time in terms of visuals. So that's a little bit more on the technical side. Just a brief sort of aside there, is that this is a visual spectacle alone, and that even just watching this for the transformations and the action sequences alone is worth it. But then we actually get into the story, and as I was rewatching this, the narrative, not that it didn't already make sense, but I finally I got a few more of the details. For those of you who didn't grow up with this movie, but maybe experienced other films and other stories, watching this time, I realized there's essentially three specific narratives going on. Three separate narratives that, like, by the sort of last 20 minutes or so of the movie, everybody sort of comes together. They all have different sources of information, and they all bring their information together to help stop the main threat of the Decepticons. It will probably remind you of Stranger Things. The first season of Stranger Things had a similar narrative setup, where you have the narrative with the adults, you have the narrative with the teenagers, and then you have the narrative with the kids. And here in the first Transformers film, it's a very similar sort of three narrative setup where you have the narrative of Sam Witwicky and Michaela, and how they have Bumblebee. They're introduced to the Transformers, the Autobots, and what they're looking for. You have the narrative of the army guys from the Middle East, and what it actually takes to defeat these guys. And then you have the narrative of the NSA people decoding the signal that came from the Middle East attack at the intro of the film. And we'll talk about that here in a second too, because that intro does a lot more than just it's not just for spectacle. Excuse me. But so it's basically these three different narratives, all in their own branches, and they all come together at the very end to help come together. They all bring their own bits of information to this table, so they can all come together and defeat the Decepticons. So really cool, interesting narrative structure there. And why it's so interesting is that each narrative essentially has a different function in the story. So, for example, the Army Guys storyline, that's to be a little bit more serious. It's a little bit more action heavy, and it's supposed to illustrate the how human beings are just like out of their depth with these aliens, right? And the NSA side does that a little bit too, but it's more on the intellectual side of recognizing like, hey, it's trying to understand like these codes and what the aliens are using, what the Decepticons are using, and how to combat that, right? Being trying to the funny thing is on the intellectual side is that they actually have to revert to older technology like radio waves to counteract all these computer viruses that the Decepticons use against them. That's basically the intellectual side. But then the army side is to show like how human beings have never run into anything like this before, and they don't know what exactly to do, and while they're in the middle of a fight, they have to find a way to defeat these Decepticons, and ultimately they do. And so this particular narrative does two things. It shows how out of their depth they are as human beings, as soldiers, but also despite the fact that they're out of their depth, they still respond so competently. And despite the fact that like they have like little freak out moments here and there, talking about what it was, what's going on, I have no idea what this is, we need gun stations here ASAP sort of thing. They don't know how to categorize it, but they know they've got to do something, and they act despite the fact that like any other person, myself included, would just be freaking out and running away in the other direction. But these guys are competent, and they show up and they're there, and despite the fact of feeling out of their depth against these larger than life autonomous robotic organisms, the Decepticons and the Autobots, they still respond, and they still are constantly being analytical of, okay, what's effective, okay, this isn't working, oh, that's effective, that's what we got to start using, that's how we push back against these guys. It was so I can't quite pinpoint it, but in a lot of, I feel like in a lot of stories, maybe not recently, I feel like it feels like it's been a while since I've seen a movie where I saw such competent military members. And maybe I'm not watching enough TV shows, maybe I'm not watching enough movies, maybe there's a lot more stuff out there, but it did feel like a little bit of fresh air to experience military members who were acting competently and not just being jack-offs the entire time. That might just be based on my own, like, not not seeing enough, not watching enough, not reading enough. So that not by me might be more of a me experience there. But so yeah, army, the army branch of the storyline illustrates that. Talked about the intellectual side a little bit with the NSA, and then and the army and NSA branches are kind of the more serious ones. There are bits of comedy here and there, but the real comedic side is the teenager side, the side with Sam and Michaela. And that's where they can play with the bit of that sort of old tradition in the Transformers like shows and stuff of the kids being involved in the Transformers universe, the Transformers stories, what they're dealing with, being teamed up with the Autobots. Even as a kid, it never really made sense to me. Like I grew up on the Transformers Armada series, and while it was fine to see those kids there, honestly, the entire time I was still thinking like, why are there kids here in the first place? I'm here to see giant robots fight. But they keep that tradition here in this movie, but they do make it make sense. They have that whole bit of how Sam has the glasses, and the Autobots and Decepticons were looking for the glasses. The Autobots don't just show up and destroy everything and then take the glasses from the humans, but instead are trying to work with the humans. Bumblebee becomes Sam's guardian, and is wanting to work with Sam and human beings rather than just showing up, destroying the human beings, and then just taking the glasses to find the Allspark. And so that all three of those narratives make sense in what they're trying to accomplish, and they all come together at the very end. Speaking of characters, though, let's talk about. I don't know if this is still a criticism now. I hope that has been debunked, but if it isn't, now's my time to debunk it. I don't know what people's problem was with Megan Fox's character. I really don't. I get the problem of her not being there in Dark of the Moon, based on the events of Revenge of the Fallen, but I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like people made the mistake of saying that she had no character and that she was just there to be a hot chick. Look, obviously she's hot. That's not what I'm not trying to debunk that. I'm trying to debunk the fact that she didn't have some kind of character arc, or she doesn't have like her own struggles, her own characterization. And the fact that people missed that, I think, is a reflection on them rather than any sort of accurate critique on her character. So yes, obviously her being this hot chick is part of the story, but it goes beyond that. So, for example, so she's this hot chick, and then she admits that she has problems with like being attracted to hot guys with abs and stuff like that. That's explained. She has boy problems. Yeah, because her dad is in jail. Which is a very, very common thing, not just with teenage girls, but with teenage boys, just kids and teenagers growing up without a parent or without parents. Your life becomes turbulent and you don't know how to navigate things. She didn't have a dad to warn her about douchebags, right? And so she is attracted to douchebags because, unfortunately, douchebags come off and present themselves as if they have power, and people are attracted to power. Like, that's just sort of a natural human inclination. So there's that, and then also breaking sort of stereotypical norms with female characters. She's a bit of a mechanical car junkie sort of thing. She knows her cars. She knows how the mechanics work. Also, that plays into the story itself. She knows about cars because her dad would take her along on Grand Theft Autos that he would commit, right? And so this weird connection that she has with her tinkering with mechanics, because it connects her with her dad, but it's also what got her dad in trouble. It's also what got her a juvie record, because she wouldn't turn her dad in. So again, if this is not really a thing anymore, I'm sorry to bring it up, but I feel like people still aren't talking about Michaela in an honest way. Yes, she's a hot chick, and that is part of her character and how she's presented, but that's not it. She's more complex than that. She has her struggles and she has her doubts. She has things that she has to overcome, her own realizations that she has to make. And so I really, really don't like the criticisms levied at Michaela's character. I can't speak to the stuff that occurred sort of behind the scenes between apparently Megan Fox and Michael Bay. I don't actually know. Again, I don't really care about what happens behind screen too much. I care about how the movie plays out. And Michaela's character is a phenomenal addition to the story. And yeah, just whatever criticisms people have about Michaela, I just don't think stand up to scrutiny. To get into more of the characters, though, I really appreciate Sam Witwicky and his character, but I think something that people don't talk about is his. I don't know if foil character is the right term, but he is at least meant to be a reflection character. You have Sam Witwicky, teenage boy, growing up, learning that there's this world beyond him and that he has to all of a sudden kind of grow up, right? And then you have Captain Lennox's character, right? And he's discovering the Transformers too. These characters are at least meant to be kind of, or no, Captain Lennox is meant to be a mirror character for Sam Witwicky. So Sam, completely out of his depth. He's basically a coward at the beginning of the film. Doesn't really know what to do. But because of Michaela and her ability with mechanics, she does a little bit better with combating the Transformers, particularly the small one. I forget, it's the little spazzy one that like turns into a CD player and a cell phone. But by the end of the film, Sam Witwicky is able to face danger. He develops courage. He's even able to face Megatron, right? Help save the day at the end and all that. But it's this character arc that he goes on. But he has the mirror character of Captain Lennox, who is experienced, who is capable, who has already learned how to control his courage, how to use his anger, how to use his emotions and his power to aim it and accomplish a goal. And those two coming together, they don't have a lot of direct interactions, save for that moment when Captain Lennox gives him the flare and tells him to take the cube to that building. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But yeah, so you have this Sam Witwicky character, pretty much coward, scared. Other people do things for him, but he sort of catches his feet. He picks himself up, and he does eventually learn to face the danger, right? Then you have Captain Lennox, who's competent, experienced, pushes forward, finds a problem, doesn't run away from it, but faces it and confronts it, defeats it, all that stuff. And it's really sort of a representation of the journey of masculinity of Sam having this power of masculinity, but not really knowing what to do with it. That conversation starts with the Witwicky motto, the "No sacrifice, no victory," introduced by the father, mind you. So more masculinity going on there. Again, lots of interesting archetypal stuff. And then by the end, Sam Witwicky himself is using that phrase, no sacrifice, no victory, because he finally understands it. He properly understands it because of the events in the film. So to address that particular scene where Captain Linux and well, actually before that, shout out to the guy who plays Captain Linux, and I'm about to do him an injustice, even though I'm trying to do him a proper justice. That guy, I feel like, is a very underrated actor. I've only seen him in a handful of other things. I know he's in basically every Transformers film, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been in a few other films. My wife likes that movie, Safe Haven, and he's the main dude in that, and he does a good job there. But this guy is really, really slept on, and I feel like that's a disservice to him as an actor because he does a really good job. But there's that moment between Captain Linux and Sam Witwicky. And Sam Witwicky's kind of been, being a little bit braver here and there, exercising his experience that he's been having a little bit, getting a little braver. But then all of a sudden, all the cards are on the table. All of a sudden, all the Decepticons are coming in. Captain Linux can't leave his team. Someone's got to take the cube somewhere safe. It's got to be Sam Witwicky. Captain Linux knows this, and you could make the argument that Sam Witwicky knows this too. But he's scared because all of a sudden, like, the cube is like the thing that the Transformers are after, right? And it comes down to this one teenage boy to make sure that the bad guys don't get it. And admittedly, Sam Witwicky's scared, but he has to look at Captain Linux, this sort of mirror character of his. Captain Linux says, I don't care that you're scared. This needs to happen. You need to let go of your fear, or at least use it to push yourself to do this. You are a soldier now. You need to do this, or else a lot of people are going to die. We're counting on you. And putting that pressure in that moment on Sam Witwicky and seeing him like push through it despite the fear. It's that moment where that Sam Witwicky looks more like Captain Linux, and he sort of crosses that threshold into he's that sort of competent, just like Captain Linux is that competent military member. Sam Witwicky is this competent character now, being a more active force in the movie. So yeah, that mirroring the different characters. I'm trying to think. Oh man, there's so much to talk about. I haven't even touched on Optimus Prime here. So before we touch on Optimus Prime, the presentation of the Bayverse films I think is worth addressing. The scene does not open up on Cybertron, right? Excuse me. It opens up on establishing that what the Allspark is, what's happened to it, and essentially telling the viewer what the mission is for the film. But the scene that really starts the movie is that military base attack in the Middle East. When I think his name is Blackout, the helicopter Decepticon, where he attacks the military base. Again, the CGI is absolutely incredible in this film, and that opening immediately sets the tone. There are a few moments here and there of brevity, a little bit of humor here and there, but a big portion of that scene is just the absolute level of devastation that Transformers can inflict upon human beings. It really, I assume Michael Bay. Michael Bay did such a good job of establishing that, yeah, this is Transformers. You're going to recognize the characters. You're going to recognize them. And, some of these story beats. But this isn't Gen 1. This is not a cartoon. This is meant to be taken realistically. This is a realistic portrayal of Decepticons and what they would do if they came to Earth looking for the Allspark, what would they do? They would absolutely decimate human beings at any turn to get what they want. And the destruction of that military base is a perfect example. It's a perfect establishment of what Decepticons, what Transformers are capable of, and especially what Decepticons are willing to do to get what they want. I never want to hear anything again of how like Optimus Prime or the Autobots make the Decepticons look like law-abiding citizens or some stuff like that. These Decepticons are absolutely brutal. They do not care at all about human life, about having any sort of ethical or moral framework for anything. They just do whatever they want. And that's what the Autobots are up against every single time they go into a fight with a Decepticon. To talk about this more specifically, again, going back to those Optimus Prime criticisms that for a time people had that I never understood. People try to say that the beginning of Optimus Prime being a psycho was the way he fought Bone Crusher. So it's the first fight that you see Optimus Prime get into with a Decepticon. First of all, the fight really doesn't last that long. It's maybe a minute or so. And he basically stabs the he stabs the Decepticon's neck, and then he pops off his head. Right? Now, on surface level, that sounds really, really brutal, whatever. But literally seconds before the fight starts, Bone Crusher is tossing cars with human drivers in them, tossing them to the side, not even because they're in the way, but just because he can and because he doesn't care. Some of them are in the way, but he's still throwing away human life the entire time. Actually comparing the transformations of Bone Crusher and Optimus Prime in that scene is a really good way of understanding the differences in mindsets between Autobots and Decepticons. Bone Crusher's transformation shows he starts, well, first of all, even before he starts transforming, he's tossing cars left and right, just like, don't care, out of my way, boom, don't care, oh, you're over there, out of my way, boom, I knock you even more out of the way. So just killing people left and right. He transforms, kills more people during the transformation, and then once he's fully transformed, just because he can, he tears through a busload of people. Like, literally a bus. He destroys a bus by cutting straight through the middle of it and just absolutely decimates everyone in it. Compare that to the transformation of Optimus Prime, who knows that Bone Crusher is coming, and so, he's preparing to have a fight with him, but you literally hear the brakes stop on Optimus Prime. He starts transforming, and he's literally controlling everything that he does to make sure that he doesn't hit a car. Admittedly, he hits one car after sort of, because of the momentum of him driving and being in car form, he kind of does this jump, and he accidentally nicks a car. But it's very clearly an accident. He wasn't trying to do that, and he's still trying to slow himself down to get ready for this fight with Bone Crusher. So this Bone Crusher dude literally commits several atrocities of murder, and people are getting upset with how Optimus Prime fights the guy. No. I don't care what you have to say. Optimus Prime ended the fight as quickly as he could. He ended it efficiently, and also is a phenomenal spectacle of Optimus Prime's abilities as a fighter. Also, it was cool to see Optimus Prime have a sword. Typically, in media, he's been depicted with an axe, but they decided to go with a sword here. I'm glad they bring the axe back in Dark of the Moon, but it was cool to see Optimus Prime with a sword. And then, so yeah. whatever criticism people have of Optimus Prime in that scene, it never made sense to me as a kid. It does not make sense to me now. And I don't even think that's just bias. I think that's just people aren't using their critical thinking. Um, so then they get to Mission City where everything's going down. Megatron's after the Allspark. Oh man, yeah, I've just been going on this movie because I just love it so much. Excuse me. Oh, a little detail about Ironhide that I never noticed before. So, in case you didn't see it, I have like the 4K Ultra HD collection of the movies, and something that I'd never seen before. With this is a slight aside, sort of diverting from the topic on hand right now, but a little detail I never noticed on Ironhide from the beginning of the movie, which suggests some kind of like war damage over time or whatever during his time on Cybertron or whatever. He actually has like a scar on his eye. That was really cool to see. But talking about Optimus Prime as a leader, and the difference sort of between a hero and a leader. So a hero doesn't necessarily always have a team that they have to work with or that they are working with. A leader inherently has people under them, has to make decisions that affects them, and his leadership is brought a little bit into question in the handling of Bumblebee and when he's taken. And I would say that that is really, really well done in this movie, where the Autobots really want to do something about helping Bumblebee, but Optimus Prime understands that they're not going to be able to help him without hurting human beings, and that our mission is not to be here to hurt humans, but we're here to hopefully get the Allspark, keep it from the Decepticons, and actually keep human beings safe. I saw a comment on one of these scenes on YouTube where someone comments that it was refreshing to see an alien species that isn't there to attack or dominate humanity, but instead is capable of self-reflection and seeing themselves in humanity and recognizing that they also made similar mistakes. And I thought that was a very accurate way of looking at this particular first film, and how Optimus Prime is able to see that as a leader, and how he sees himself, he sees his past, he sees the Transformers past as being very similar to that of human beings. And the fact that he's capable of that self-reflection kind of proves why he's the hero, or sorry, why he's the leader of the Autobots. But while he certainly feels for Bumblebee and struggles with having to let him go, a leader, there's these sort of a couple of core tenets. There's a lot of different tenets and rules in objectives in the Marine Corps, but the top two that were ingrained, at least in me and other recruits whenever we were going through boot camp, and then once we hit the fleet, is the number one core tenet is mission accomplishment. We do what it takes to accomplish the mission, always. Even for leaders, even at the cost of your own men. It just, if you're gonna accomplish the mission, it's going to take sacrifice. No sacrifice, no victory, right? And now, second tenet, at least, and then it goes on from there into others. But the second one is troop welfare. And I think that second one of troop welfare goes into Optimus Prime's sort of discussions with his Autobots when they're questioning his decisions on his handling of Bumblebee and letting him get captured and not not fighting against the humans and actually actively trying to protect them. He explains his position. He explains that that we're more similar than you might think, and that they are worth being protected. Especially, they're worth being protected from the violence that we are bringing to them, and that it's worth dying for, because he says he's willing to die and destroy the Allspark, so that so that human beings won't suffer a similar fate that they will. Oh man, so that a lot. Like I said, a lot's been on my mind about this movie. I absolutely love it. So another kind of these are kind of like little nitpicks I'm going to talk about here. It's just things that I would have liked to have seen more of really in the film. After that awesome Bone Crusher fight that Optimus Prime had, I would have liked to have seen more of the Optimus Prime versus Megatron fight. There's a little bit of it here and there, and to be fair, they have some really great show of it too. Like that scene where Optimus Prime is trying to stop Megatron while Megatron is in his flight mode, and they just go straight through a building. Like, oh my gosh, that is, again, like props to the special effects people, because that is an amazing. Well, not amazing because people die, but you know what I mean. It's quite the spectacle. Like, it is just absolutely explodes in your mind. But I wish there would have been more of the fight between Optimus Prime and Megatron, because I like their fights. I like their dynamics. I always appreciate whenever they have the sort of that final stand, that final battle between each other. So that was really cool. This is a critique less on the 2007 film, but a critique on Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. At the end of 2007 film, Bumblebee is able to speak finally. But then he's still speaking through the radio in Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. That never sat right with me, personally. And I think it's because they realized that was a big part of the humor in the first Transformers film, and they didn't want to give it up. And so they had Bumblebee keep talking from the radio. I feel like that was a big miss with Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. I really feel like they just needed to commit to Bumblebee speaking normal. And I think he still doesn't speak again until last night, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, man. This is just that 2007 Transformers film is really, really, really good. It's fine completely if you don't watch the other films. And there are some criticisms of those other films that I do actually kind of agree with to some extent in some of them. Not everything. Again, the mischaracterization of Optimus Prime is a big problem for me in in Michael Bay movies. But it's certainly, like, I would argue probably the 2007 film is the peak Transformers film experience. So if nothing else, definitely watch that first one. I really feel like I probably have more to say, but it's all just kind of a blank to me right now. But the narrative is just so cohesive. It hits all the right bits. There's really, really no like throwaway scene, I would argue. I mean, you could make the argument that maybe that bit of sexual humor in the middle of the film when Sam Witwicky is looking for his glasses. So as a teenager, that felt out of place. As an adult, like, that's absolutely like what a parent would think, and they would absolutely say that out loud if they were if they'd had a little too much to drink. So it fits a little bit more as an adult, but Transformers is more of a kids franchise, and so having a joke like that and even more jokes like that as the series goes on really, really doesn't fit. But it does at least make sense within the context of the film. So it's not completely out of place, but you could make the argument you could take it out and it wouldn't hurt the film at all. It just it so there it is. It makes sense in the film, but you can take it out and the film is not less for it. But yeah, so, like so much of it has a function that works for the film. There is a lot of buildup. You don't get a whole lot of Autobots versus Decepticons except until the very very end. So like the last 20 to 30 minutes of the film is really where the action ramps up. You have that fight between Bumblebee and the cop Decepticon, and then you have that opening scene where the helicopter Decepticon just absolutely destroys the military base. And then there's this Corponok fight that the human beings get in with in the middle as well. But like I said, there's a lot of buildup before you see a lot of Autobots and Decepticons fighting each other. The only other critique that I can think of, people complain about the slow motion. Um, I'm trying to think. There might be one scene where you could have taken out the slow motion. Um, but most of the slow motion pieces involve some kind of high paced action going on. A lot of it is centered around, for example, Ironhide. A lot of the slow motion bits are him like dodging missiles. All of that's happening really, really fast. And so slowing it down to help the viewer translate what's going on screen makes sense. Um, and also, not only is Ironhide like dodging the missiles, but he's also like shooting back, and so you also need to translate that to the viewer. And so the criticism of there's too much slow motion really doesn't make sense because it's all very action oriented, and it's yeah, admittedly like it looks cool, but also seeing it play out in slow motion helps the viewer understand everything that's happening all at once. There is one particular slow motion scene where maybe you could make the argument it wasn't really necessary. Uh, and it's when Starscream first attacks the group in Mission City. Um, I probably won't push too much back on this particular critique, but my understanding of it was that like this is the first time. So like Michaela and Sam were like attacked by the police Decepticon, but they were never really in any huge danger because Bumblebee was there the whole time, being their protector. But when Starscream shoots his missiles at the street, and like there's just explosions and all kinds of debris and everything going over everywhere, all of a sudden it slows down, and Sam and Michaela have this moment of reaching out for each other and trying to comfort each other. I kind of saw that as they're waking up to what they signed up for, and how like this is real now, and not only is it real, but it's turned up to 11, and it can go even worse, and it can go even higher. That's how I translated that slow motion sequence. I saw it as a moment for the viewer to be like, oh, this is where things get real. It's sort of a transition from sort of the uphill, sort of slow burn, and now it's like, now you're in the thick of it, and you're either getting through it or you're going to die, sort of thing. And then, so you have that moment of they realize where they are, and then before they all go off on their own little missions that they have to accomplish during this last 20 to 30 minutes, you have that shared moment of Michaela and Sam where Michaela's like, I don't care what happens, whatever happens after this, I'm really glad I got in the car with you. Which I think is a very touching moment. It solidifies their relationship very well. And it's very reflective of like sort of that teenage drama or angst. It's reflecting back to that moment when Sam said, 20 or 30 years down the road, don't you want to tell your kids that you had the guts to get in the car? And it's Michaela reflecting on what Sam told her, and she's saying, no matter what happens, whether I die, you die, if the world gets turned into a bunch of Transformers, I'm really glad I got in the car with you. I'm really glad I came with you. So it's a really good job of cementing their relationship and their experiences with each other. Oh man, I still don't think I'm even touching on everything that I wanted to, but I think I just said so much now that it's all just kind of escaping me a little bit. But yeah, if I haven't said it enough, go watch the 2007 Transformers film. As always, I am your most humble and obedient servant, Page Ghost.